Okay, today we're going to find the GCF of a set of numbers. Okay, so on the screen I have two problems we're going to work out together. The way that I teach students how to do this, to me, I found it to be the most effective. It uses prime factorization in a chart. The reason I teach it this way is because it just really takes one more step to move into LCM afterward. So let's just get started here. Okay, so step number one is we're going to take and make a factor tree to find the prime factorization of the set of numbers. Okay, working on number one here, we need to make a factor tree for 12. So making the factor tree for 12. So 12 breaks into 3 times 4, and 4 breaks into 2 times 2. Alright, so I try to tell my students to come back and circle their prime numbers, and then that way if everything at the bottom is circled, they know that they're done working with it. Okay, so we obviously don't circle 4 because it's not prime. So here on 72, uh, divisibility rules is real handy here to know. uh, 2 is an even number, so 2 is going to go into this, and 2 goes into it. And if you don't know, by all means, don't be lazy. You can pull over here to the side, and you can divide 72 by 2, do long division, and you'll find out that it goes into it 36 times. Okay, so circle 2 because it's prime. 36 is going to break into, 6 is an even number, so I know 2 is going into it again. So 2 goes into it again. We can circle it. 2 goes into 36 18 times. So 2 into 36 18 times. So 18 again. 18 is a prime number. Or not a prime number. 8 is an even number. So because 8's even, I know that 2 goes into it again. So we can circle. 18 is 2 times 9, and 9 gives you 3 times 3. So we can circle those because we're done working with them. Alright, so the next step over here is to make a chart. So we're going to make a chart with 12 and 72 in it. So we make our chart. Making our chart. So first thing we do is, different teachers, different things. Some teachers that I've been with, they tell you just to write down the factors, the prime factorization of 12, the way it is at the bottom of the factor tree, and that's fine. You'll get the same answer. But I prefer to go ahead and write it in order. It'll help students out later on in life when they get to polynomials and things of that nature, if they go ahead and just write the prime factorization in order. So when you write it into, it's a good idea to check it and make sure that it equals the number you're trying to do. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. So 72. We need to write the factors down for 72, but it's really important to line up your common factors. And what I mean by that is if you look at this 2 right here, okay, there's obviously a 2. So we need to make sure that this 2 has a match somewhere over here. So there's a match right there. That's somewhere that we can put the 2, and it has a match. So we're going to put the 2 underneath this 2. Alright, so my next number, my next match is another 2. So that 2, yep, he's got a home right here, okay, underneath the second 2 under the 12, or beside the 12. So we have a third 2. Well, the third 2, there is no third 2 over here in our chart. So he has to go out here at the end. Okay, so that 2 goes out at the end. Now we have a 3. Oh, that 3 lines up right here underneath this 3. Okay, and we have 1 3 left over. So you've got another 3. So this is what I mean by lining up the things that are in common. We're going to line them up. And this matters with GCF, and then if you line them up, it'll go right into LCM. So we're going to take, and GCF stands for greatest common factor. and I try to teach a little mnemonic it's a little corny, but sometimes it works for some students. I teach them that think about grouping, and typically when they think of the grouping tells you to make a circle. That's a good way to group things. So we're going to come over here and we're going to group everything that they have in common with a circle. So we're going to group that too, and group or circle that. Okay. So I can't circle the 2 or the 3 here at the end. I can't circle, and I'll show you what I mean. I can't circle this 2 or this 3 right here, the 2 or the 3, because they don't have matches. So I don't circle those. So to find the GCF, the only thing I have to do now is I'm going to multiply these numbers that I circled from left to right. Well, I tell students think about matching shoes, and what I mean by that is if I have in this first column underneath this blue arrow, if I have 2 Nike shoes, it just represents a pair of Nike shoes. So same thing here. If I have 2 twos that are grouped together, it just represents a 1, 2 that they share. Same thing here. This one represents a 2 that they share. And this one represents a 3 that they share. Okay? So 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. So 12 is going to be your GCF of 12 and 72. Okay, so if you wanted to work one out on your own, you can pause it here and try this number 2 problem. But, I'll work it out, so, we got more practice. Better you practice at math, the better you'll get with it, and it's just a good habit to get into to learn, go ahead and practice your math. So finding the GCF, step 1 is going to be to prime factorization. So we need to make a factor tree. So 30, 3, and 10. And you can start off with small numbers, you can start off with big numbers. It doesn't matter as long as you're circling your prime numbers, and then everything at the bottom is circled when you're done. So here, 2 times 5 is 10. And sometimes people will say, well, but I did 2 and 15. Well, great that you did 2 and 15. You should have the same prime factorization at the bottom. So, and I can show you here real quick what I'm talking about. 30, if I decide to do it 2 and 15, and the 15 breaks into 3 times 5. So I still have the same 3 numbers at the bottom. I have a 2, I have a 3, and I have a 5. So order with this doesn't really matter. So I'll erase that just to stop confusion. Okay, so now let's get the prime factorization of 45. 9 times 5, and I'll work this one out a little bit different. So as long as you're circling your prime numbers, you're on the right track. So this one's 3 times 3. Let me just circle the 3 and circle the other 3. So as long as everything at the bottom is circled, I'm done with my factor tree. So over here now we make our chart. That's our next step. Step 1 was prime factorization. Step 2 is to make a chart with 30 and 45. So 30 and 45. 30, we can write them down as they come, or we can put them in order. Like I say, I prefer to put them in order. 2 times 3 times 5. So this is 6 times 5, which does equal 30. So I'm just kind of checking that in my head. Alright, so here's where we line up our shoes or match our common factors. So my first number I'm dealing with is this 3. So this 3, he needs to match. So he needs to go underneath another 3. And I have a spot right here where he can go. So I'm done with that 3. Alright, and every now and again I'll tell some students just to mark through it when you're done working with it. That way you get all of them transferred over to your chart. So my next number right here, I have another 3. Well, if you look over at your chart, you don't have a home for that 3 to go to, or you don't have a match for it. So it goes out here at the end. Okay, kind of goes out there in the rain. And we can come back and we can mark through this 3 to know that we're done with it. And next we have a 5, and he has a nice place right here underneath the other 5. And like I say, the most important thing is to line up the ones you have in common. And we can mark through the 5 because we're done with it. So now we're going to check it in our head, or well, I'm checking it out loud, but you should take it in your head. 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 times 3 is 45. So we've got all that. So now GCF, I teach grouping. GCF means grouping. So if we're going to group this stuff together, we need to circle what they have in common. So we're going to circle the 3 and circle the 5. And then this represents the 3 that they share. This represents the 5 that they share. We multiply them together, and that's 15, which equals my GCF. Two quick notes here. If you only circle one number that they have in common, that number is your GCF because there's nothing to multiply by. So if they both had a 3 in common, say, 3 would be your GCF. And then in special cases, sometimes you won't have anything in common, and in that case, 1 is your GCF. And I hope this has helped you find the GCF of a set of numbers. Thank you.